globe: Turkey, Indonesia, US, Mexico, Romania. So we have interest in game design everywhere. This is really cool. Whoever doesn't know Amber, we are a game development services agency, and Amber Academy is our educational program created for Amber people, but not only, because our value is community. We like to share our know-how. So today, it's time for experts from game design to talk, and we have Solo, who wears many hats in Amber. But today, he will only wear one.
Yeah. Yeah, one too many hats. I don't know if we have stalled enough.
I think we still need to stall a bit, because I see people joining us on Zoom one by one. Solo, if I may, I just want to share with everyone just a little bit about logistics, because yes, this is a webinar. We are not able to see you, but you can still interact with us. We have a Q&A section. Those of you who are joining us on Zoom, please use the Q&A section, and Solo will answer to your questions towards the end of the hour. And if you are watching us on Facebook right now, do not worry. We will pick up your questions from there. So just leave them in the comments, and we'll take the questions and make sure they reach us by the end of the session. So yes, Solo, lovely. Now the stage is yours.
The stage is mine. So let me share my screen just quickly. This one. All right. Here we go. The topic I chose today was is the reemergence of premium game design, and you will see why I'm talking about a reemergence anytime soon. Before we go, I really like to thank Andrea for really pushing for these programs and webinars, and I would also like to thank you, everyone at home. Please make yourself comfortable. It's gonna take a while, but not too much. So stay with us. I usually like to structure my presentations. I like to start with a table of contents. I will do a brief introduction of myself, and then we will talk a bit about subscription-based gaming and why you should consider it. Then we're going to touch base on cloud-based gaming and probably the future of your living room. I'm going to share some closing thoughts of mine, and then we're going to have a Q&A. So without further ado, let's jump into it. This is my name. My colleagues call me Solo for short, but the full name is Ionut-Gabriel Solomon. I've been playing for almost 30 years of my life, and I'm 35, 36 now. So since I was 6 years old, my father brought home an Atari clone. It's something that you see towards the left of my presentation. And then I got something which only a Romanian can relate. It's basically a clone of a ZR Spectrum. Then another clone of a Sega, because Romania, and we were a poor country. And I think by the age of 18, I got my first computer, and it was really expensive. Then mobile phones became a thing, probably the job and everything happened, and I'm nowadays playing mostly on my phone and on my console, but rarely on console. So I play mostly on my phone. The game developer, well, my career started in 2007 in Ubisoft. I was working in the QA department for almost 2 years prior to moving to the production studio in Bucharest, Romania. I've worked on Tom Clancy's Hoax 2. I worked on Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Future Soldier and another Tom Clancy title, which is Ghost Recon Wildlands. In 2014, I joined this crazy bunch at Amber. I moved from doing, let's say, games with guns to Cinderella Freefall. And recently we soft launched the title. It's not available everywhere, so if you won't find it on the App Store, that's probably why, or on the Play Store. It's just being recently launched and it has guns. So talking about guns, I made this, super sophisticated pie chart over games that have guns, and as you can see, 20% of the games that I worked on don't have guns. So it was just to kind of make a point with a pie chart. So let's jump a bit in the subscriptions and the games industry. And before I go, I wanna kind of say that games is entertainment. It's somewhat a sister industry to music and movies. So most of the times we get cross-pollinated. You would see a game made after a movie, or a movie made after a game. How it happened in the recent years, and why do I wanna kind of, let's say, bring this up to the topic? Is that there are some trends that are happening around the entertainment industries. As you can see, from 2004, people found more accessible ways of listening to music rather than buying physical copies of their favorite bands, let's say, or their favorite tracks. And since 2008, streaming started becoming a thing. And fast forward to 2018, and I guess the figure is higher today. Most of the, let's say, revenues made in the music industry comes from streaming alone. And as you know, there are some services, Tidal, Spotify, to name a few, that provide you access to their catalog of music for a fee, of course. So you don't physically own the music, but you have access to tons of it. In the other, let's say, sister domain of games, we have like Netflix, which started to rise in popularity over the years, and it kind of dethrones the TV as being the center spot of the home. I mean, you could still watch TV, Netflix on your TV, but it's not like traditional cable television. It's streamed and it's a subscription that you pay. So why not have the same model in games, you might ask? Well, there are some. On Apple, on this year in January, I believe, or February, launched the Apple Arcade subscription, which is a service for which you pay $5 a month. You have access to a variety of games, family friendly. There are exclusives even. So it's a nice alternative to probably browsing the Play Store or trying to spend, let's say, your savings on premium experiences on mobile. The same can be said, but not quite, about Google Play Pass, which it's now only available in the States. It has the same subscription fee, but I haven't found many exclusive there. On the console space, there are two, the main, PS4 and Xbox, the main, let's say, competitors in the console space, have PlayStation Now and Xbox Game Pass. And both provide, again, a variety of titles that you can play for probably, I believe it was like $10, $60 a year, something like that. It was for the PlayStation Now. Of course, if you purchase the subscription by the month, then you're gonna pay a bit higher than probably just $5 a month. So in the, let's say, PC alone, of course, you have access to PlayStation Now, for instance. You can access it from the PC as well. But what happens is that publishers made their own subscription platform. So you have Uplay Plus from Ubisoft, you have Origin Access Premier from Electronic Arts, and I think the list continues. I just wanted to touch briefly on a few companies that that chose this model, and there are some things that happen when, let's say, you use a subscription platform. First, you don't own the games that you want to play. You don't have the physical copies of them, and it's kind of, it's nostalgia hits you when you look at that case. When I look at my two discs of the Diablo, I had two copies of them, only to lose them and buy a digital version later in my life. But the thing is that the next big hit, usually costs $60. And if you want to go for exclusive, which has exclusive edition written all over it, and look at this deal, it's going to be probably even more than that. And if you're going to choose DLCs, it's going to cost you even more than that. So, but you get to own the games. But I don't think that owning is that much of importance right now, because a study from Steam showed us that more than 1 out of 3 games purchased were like never opened or played. So you own the games, but do you have the time to play them? So that could be, let's say, a waste of money, if you ask me. But if you consider a subscription, first, you have access to hundreds of titles. You're not going to play them in the first day of launch, right? You won't be able to go everywhere and say, hey, I got the next big hit, exclusive edition, look at this mug, it's beautiful and I love it. No, but still, you're going to play it, let's say, 6 months later. And not only that, you're going to play a lot of games. You could try some of them that you didn't really thought you're gonna like, and probably you're gonna discover some games that are really cool and deserve their spot in that subscription list. So there's a balance between owning the games and the variety of the games that you own, and I believe that the subscription, both in terms of pricing and in terms of access to lot of quality games, does it. I will probably go for subscribing, if you ask me, to whatever comes, because I don't think there is a Netflix of games. And you would say, hey, but what does this mean for me? What does this mean for a game designer? Well, first, there are some which I know that I talk with, and they are like, oh, when is this free-to-play model gonna end? Not that is bad. I'm not saying that free-to-play is bad or whatnot. It has its own audience, its own quality products out there. But, people just want to break the norm. So I really believe that there is an opportunity to shift towards premium experiences with a really solid, if the, let's say, Netflix of games would come up in the next couple of years. The second one, it's going to be a surge to lower the gap between free-to-play games and hardcore titles to subscription-based ones, which are kind of oriented towards a family experience that you can play with your kids, that I don't know, maybe your dad can pick up. And guess what? You're not going to spend any more money, because you have the subscription and you can choose from there a title for each of the aforementioned members of your family. Now, the third one, and this is an interesting hypothesis. If I grew up when I was young, if I grew up being used to having a variety of games to play, I don't think I would transition from this model. So if it's a smart and probably, I don't know, it's an interesting method of, let's say, preparing the next generation of gamers and setting, let's say, a standard and the way forward for them. So they'll get used to subscribing. They'll get used to not owning games, but they'll get used to having a variety of them. And the number 4 reason is that big companies are going to compete against each other to create a Netflix of games. And why is that important? Well, they're going to fight for exclusives. They're going to fight for content to bring on their platforms. And that only means that if you are looking to publish your game and whatnot, you might have a better chance of doing so. I hope this made sense. If it didn't, or if you have any questions, please write them in the chat, and I'll happy answer them in the Q&A section. Let's get to the next section. They're somewhat related, but not altogether, given that you can have a subscription, let's say, and still download the games, and you would still require a computer or a computing device to play your game. So what's with cloud gaming? Gaming was always about hardware. If you look at this picture photo that I found on the internet, there was and there were these arcades that I personally went to some that were in Romania, but they're popular since the 70s. And back then, if you wanted to interact with a video game, you had to get some money, go to the arcade parlor, and insert coins into them and just play. So you would see the game over screen and would get a 3-letter place to, let's say, write your name there. This is how it all started, and it went like that up until the 80s, till late 90s, where the arcades were no longer, let's say, the attraction of teens. And that's because maybe there were some that said, oh, I just wish we could teleport to the arcade, so we didn't spend time walking up until the parlor. The technology hasn't advanced that much, but they brought the arcades into their home. So it was still hardware, but it was at your home and at your disposal. You could play whatever you wanted. I'm really curious if any of you know what probably this thing is right here. There are some really good memories about the old times of PC, where internet wasn't around. You would have to rely on bad floppies to download your games and all that. And the hardware was doing tremendous progress. Year by year were appearing, new and more capable processors, new memory, new motherboards, new tech like the CD-ROM. And as you can see, this computer didn't even have a CD-ROM back then. So hardware was still a very high entry barrier for those that wanted to play games. That's why some companies figured out, and that's how the console appeared. Now, what you can see is a teen hugging a PS2. I don't know the name of the game that they're playing, but they seem to be having fun. I guess this is a promotional material for the PlayStation. Now, PlayStation 2 is the top-selling console of all time. It has sold over 155 million units, and I would guess that parents weren't that much happy about the central hub of entertainment at home, as I call it, the TV, was occupied by these youngsters playing on their console. It's a waste of time and all that, but they didn't have that much friction with the hardware. You bought the console, you just plugged it in, you put the disc in, and it worked. It simply worked. No more drivers, no more operating systems and all that. Those were the days. I've done a bit of research, and actually this mobile phone was the first one to feature a game, and I will let you a bit of time to think what game was it. this brick, as it looks right now, was what was a cool gadget, but back in the 90s. And people, thought that if they have time to waste, then why not play a bit on their mobile phone, even though it looked like this, even though it had no touchscreen. So games were still able to penetrate newer, let's say, newer devices that humans were using. And I'm always talking about devices because in uh, let's say, in the gamer archetype, we like to do mostly three things. So every gamer wants to spend his time playing. Um, be it that you're a gamer, be it that you don't know that you're a gamer, but you're at level 3000 in Candy Crush. So we play. That's what we do, and we love it. And we also view content. We also want to watch others playing. We also want to watch how others perform. In this case, I don't know if you're familiar with the guy, but it was and I still think it has a very high view count on Twitch, is Ninja streaming Fortnite. And we also like to own. Now, there are threads on Reddit with battle stations and all that. So we like to own hardware. Some of us even make a passion out of it, just to buy the latest release in terms of a CPU or a graphics card, or I don't know. They are early adopters of every piece of tech in terms of gaming that comes out. That's cool for them. It's what they do, and let's appreciate them for that. So with this tree in mind, there were some archetypes done not by me, but by the folks at Newzoo. And it's interesting to see how, let's say, probably your audience as a game designer behaves in terms of playing and viewing and then owning hardware. You have the ultimate gamer right here who, does everything he can to spend his time and money and energy on games. And he's pretty young. If we look at the average, he's most likely alone. His hobbies are, of course, video games to the max, and loves computers and electronics and gadgets. So most likely that this guy will not appreciate that much the cloud gaming, let's say, business and solutions, simply because he likes hardware. And let's face it, cloud gaming isn't for everyone. It hasn't matured yet, if you ask me. You still have problem with bandwidth and internet and all that, and we're gonna touch a bit about those as well as we progress. And then you have the enthusiast. Now, he kind of likes to play, he kind of likes to watch, he kind of likes to own, but he's not, all in for games. It's close in age as the hardware enthusiast, and I think that's it. I mean, there's not much to say, just that he plays a bit less and he views a bit less and he owns a bit less, but it's still 9% of the gaming enthusiast. And then you have the cloud gamer, and this is interesting because the cloud gamer isn't that much caring about the piece of hardware that he or she owns. And there are 20% of the gaming enthusiasts. They care deeply about playing games, but they spend very little money on hardware. So how do you reach this audience, right? If they have a laptop that they bought, let's say, 8 years ago, that laptop still has a connection to the internet, and that laptop can still play a cloud-based game, given that it does well in terms of input lag and latency. And this profile is mostly going to spend on hardware when necessary. Probably in 5-10 years, this is gonna be the majority of us, as I see it, unless I don't know what something happens. And then you have the conventional player. Now, the conventional player only, looks like for him, Twitch didn't appear. He doesn't like watching others. He just likes to have his experiences firsthand. He still invests in owning a good rig or a good setup or buying probably a new console, but he's not that much keen to looking at other people's playing. And still, there are 4% of the gaming enthusiasts, so you get to know them as well. And then, this was the hardware enthusiast, nice. And this guy, he just cares about overclocking his CPU and doing whatnot with his PC and playing occasionally. He just wants an optimized experience whenever he has the time to play, because for him, playing is not that much of an interest. And then you have the popcorn gamer and this is what recently I became. I get home from work, I'm tired. I cannot, let's say, immerse myself into an experience because my son comes around and he wants to hit my keyboard, and I would, fail miserably because of that. So I just go on YouTube, consume some content, or go on Twitch and find my favorite streamers out there and cheer for them, support them. And this is how I also stay, let's say, informed about new trends and what the community likes and what they don't. And they are 13% of the gaming enthusiasts. It's still a huge number. You have the backseat viewer. I'm not that old yet. I just play more than a backseat viewer, to call it so. And this sort of a profile watches the gaming video content or esports. This is how I discovered that whenever I play Dota 2, I'm just too old and rusty to have the reflexes to be, let's say, competitive in the game. So what happens is that I still watch the internationals. I still watch the major events that happen, the esports, but I can no longer play the game. Let's say, I grew out of it. The time filler. You probably have a friend or a mom or a relative, or let's say you probably are a time filler. You don't care that much about games. You just want to spend some time playing something or doing something while you're waiting at the doctor or while you do your commute or whatnot. And still, this is like 27% of the gaming enthusiasts. This is huge. And as you can see, they don't care that much about playing. They don't care that much about viewing, and they don't care that much about owning. And they are the majority. So why should we care about, let's say, playing and viewing? Well, I started thinking about why do I watch esport competitions. It's a similar hobby now. If you, let's say, ask my dad, who watches like soccer live on TV, I do the same as he does, just that there's a different form of entertainment. And what happens with games, and what I think cloud gaming will do, was initially pivoted, and I think it was ahead of its time, by the Darwin Project. This is a screenshot from the Darwin Project. And it's a battle royale game in which the audience has a say. Now, what happens is that if you are on Twitch and these guys play, you get to choose something that happens to them. And there are so many things that I can say I like about the Darwin Project, but this blew my mind. I mean, I was there when they had this first initial tournament released on Twitch, and as a viewer, I saw this. So as a viewer, as I was, sitting at my desk, just casually watching the stream, I had to choose which area of the game would close. And it was a vote. And there wasn't only these sort of votes. There were votes like what players should we reveal for all the other players. And of course, there were big streamers playing the game, and the one with the most viewers was actually the one that was hunted by his own viewers to be, revealed for all the other players. So it was very interesting to see how the experience was created not only by the players, but us as the viewers were kind of playing the game as well with them, even though we were just watching it on Twitch. And I think that this concept, even though it's inspired by the Hunger Games, it does brilliant. It has a couple of simple things that even my mom, for me, it's the ruling stick over how simple a design is. If she gets it, then most likely all people will get it. So this game has, the mechanic of getting cold. Something so natural, you don't have to explain it to anyone, right? You get cold, you make a fire, you heat up, and then you're good to go again. To make the fire, you chop trees. That's super logical. It's not an intricate, mechanism. Not that intricate things aren't appealing. You might like intricate things, and there are a bunch of games that I play that are very complex. But the thing is, my mom, if she would accidentally pass behind my back, she wouldn't stop and try to, let's say, figure out what's happening on my screen. While as if she would look at something like this, in which the experience is relatable to the things that she knows, she might stop and watch, and she might become a new viewer. She might become let's say someone who is interested about the experience, and she might learn about the game. And I don't know, imagine how this will go, and how probably even for her, entertainment will change from only TV and shows and, let's say, C-rated movies to probably gaming at some point. So what does the cloud gaming, let's say, emerging market, because I still think there's a lot of road ahead, it means that whenever we design our games, we don't have to think only about the ones that play the game, but also for the ones that are watching them. Maybe your game gets streamed on Twitch. What's going to be that thing that catches your eye? And I can relate. The first time I discovered Kerbal Space Program was, I believe, in 2013. And I was browsing Twitch, and there was this stream. Now I didn't knew anything about the game, but I saw something which resembled to Mars, and I said, "Oh, cool, a game about space." And then I started watching, and what happened was that streamer actually landed on Mars, and there was this beautiful sunset that not sunset but sunrise. The sun was rising, and it had a beautiful, let's say, shadow of the Kerbal, which is the astronaut of that game. And man, I wanted to have and live that same experience. So fast forward, I played, I believe, like 300-400 hours of Kerbal Space Program, and probably killed 100 or 200 of astronauts while doing so. If you like the game, go give it a try, or if you like space, go give it a try. The second one, and the second point that I think will happen is that we will need to unify control schemes. Not many gamers have a keyboard, and not many gamers have a gamepad, and not many gamers even have a gaming rig or a console. They only have a mobile phone, and still you'll be tasked for creating a game that can be, played in the cloud by any of these users. So you need to think very well in terms of really nailing down your control schemes, because it does uh, it does wonders when it's done correctly, and people wouldn't even notice it. Nobody would say, "Oh, that control scheme is brilliant." No, they will not sense it. But if it's not brilliant, and then they will complain about it and have a lot of friction when using it. The third one is about input latency. As I told you, we're not there yet. Because if you were, the only thing that you would need to be considered a gamer would be a TV with an internet connection and a method of input, like a controller, let's say. So right now, most of the platforms, when benchmark, have something like 40 to 100 milliseconds delay from when you issue a command, like press the button of your keyboard, and then something happens on the screen. A pixel moves or anything that provides a feedback that your action was successful. When you typically on a local machine, this has less than 20 milliseconds. This is how probably 10% of those who have tried cloud gaming are not taking it because they sense this small delay. And what I mean by think about input latency is don't design precise time mechanics. And what I mean by that is that if you do a Super Mario, let's say, and then Mario crosses just a pixel, just a tiny pixel to a hole, allow an input at that tiny pixel. Be merciful with your player, because he might not fail because he's bad at playing your game, but he might fail because of the input latency that it's inherent with cloud gaming. The number 4 thing is try to come up with straightforward and simple rules versus very complex ones. Less is more. The simple, let's say the simplicity of your game is gonna show up. People are gonna get what's happening on the screen. They're gonna get attracted to your game. They're gonna talk about it. They're gonna watch it, and probably that game is gonna become a hobby. For me, for instance, and I bend this rule because I think I have watched well over 400 hours of YouTube content for Factorio, which is a very complex game, but it's still it's a very simple game. You run a factory and you are taking care of the automation that goes inside the factory. And that's it. And because of that simple rule that I can get, that you run a factory, but to run it, you have to do really complex, like thinking and designing and math and whatnot. I really like the game. I play it and I watch it more than any other game right now. Number 5, I'm talking about unlimited, and that's, between quotes. If you're Stadium, you might have a lot of power out there because you can harvest Google servers. So you have unlimited processing power and unlimited rendering power. So new experiences are made possible. And what I mean by new experiences? Well, most of the times, if you're, let's say, newer to probably making games in console or on PC or on mobile, you have to design with technical aspects at every step of the process. Otherwise, no matter how good the experience is, if I can play it and you can play it, then it's not an experience. So it has to work on the existing hardware. but what if you remove this limitation? I was wondering, so what? We remove processing power. But then I just thought that you can simulate a lot of AIs. You could make real-time things that were like impossible before. Um, there's a small thing that happened in the past at Ubisoft that makes me laugh, because we were actually fighting for how many AIs we can place in a map. What if we didn't have the limitation? It was a totally different experience. Number 6. I really hope and I really think that for me, that I was in this paradigm of playing games, viewing games, and even broadcasting games. It was a nuisance to switch from one state to the other. When I was playing, obviously I had to keep my game updated. When I was viewing, I had to go on the browser and find a suitable player that I could have watched. And when I was broadcasting, I was relying on third-party software and it slows down your machine to broadcast and let's say create the stream on Twitch, upload the stream on Twitch. So if everything happens in the cloud, then you could play by the click of a button. You could jump in a game. If your buddy plays, let's say, you could jump in a game just by clicking a link. You could broadcast from the game's interface without even wondering that your performance is going to be affected one way or the other. So I think it will ease things out. Number 7 is you could have a faster release cadence and a faster iteration cycle. One of the reasons they don't issue patch after patch after patch is because you might frustrate your audience if you're on mobile and the content is bigger than 50 to 100 megabytes that you have to download every release. But if you're in the cloud, then people don't get any friction from your releases. So you could iterate way faster than was possible before, given that you still release let's say QA proven iterations and increments to your games, and that's terrible. I mean, if I could submit my work straight into the cloud and then every player would benefit to that, now that's value right there. The number 8 is, and I'm talking a lot at Amber with a UX guy, and I think he would love to be able to see how people play the game, and you don't need, let's say, their tag or their info or their whereabouts. You just want to see a user interacting with your game and getting feedback from that. Now, given that the gameplay and everything happens on the cloud, you could spawn another instance of it and just sit and watch and notice what things does he get, what's causing a friction with the user, and that's really value right there. And combine it with a faster release and faster iteration cycles, man, I mean, you could, I don't know, blow the game up with good quality updates. And I guess we're done. I've seen a lot of questions from you. I've just seen them but not read them. So I'll ask Andrea to read them for me while I catch my breath.
There were many questions and also a lot of comments on our Facebook page. So thank you guys for your interest. I hope that I don't miss absolutely anything from your side. Solo, I think there was something when you post those pictures on the slides. So was it Pong? I have no idea what it means, but I'm asking you. Was it Pong?
I believe it was related to the first mobile phone and for the first mobile game, and it was Tetris. That was the game, Tetris.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So we got that out of the picture. We cleared that out.
Yeah. Let's take a new one.
Okay. So one is if you know about the Romanian cloud gaming platform, the Boosteroid, and if you have absolutely any thoughts about it compared to other similar platforms or just thoughts in general.
No, outside of so let me answer the long answer. The first time I've heard about cloud gaming platforms was in 2000, I believe 2012, when some folks from Ubisoft Romania got back from GDC and were talking something that I was like, oh my god, that's unreal. I mean, it cannot be this way. So you mean that I won't be running the game on my PC at home? I mean, you're nuts. I would love that, but it's we're ages ahead from being able to do so. And from then, I was just waiting for the industry to come up with this solution. Obviously, Gaikai, the company that my colleagues at Ubisoft were talking about, was acquired by Sony. So probably, and I've mentioned that they already have a subscription service and probably are working on a cloud-based gaming thing with Gaikai on their portfolio right now. But outside of Stadia recently, I haven't heard about that, and I'll give it a try, and thanks for the heads up.
Cool. And another one from someone who just entered a bit late, but there is a curiosity there. So if you can just review a bit, even if you've talked about it. What did you mean by shifting towards experiences?
Well, I'm trying to see if this is the answer. So with free-to-play, we were kind of, let's say, stuck into thinking and shaping our core loops over how we can monetize off our core loop, right? We weren't solely focused on creating the best experience that we can for our players. At every step of the process, we would, think, oh, and what will the player buy? What will the player need at this point? Where do you take out that resource from the game? And while this might be, a good practice even for premium experiences, it's overly done in the free-to-play one. So you sacrifice a bit of your time to implement, let's say, free-to-play faucets and sinks to make people spend, because of course at the end of the day you also need to receive your wage for the work that you do. So instead you would focus only for creating the great experience that you can for your player. That's it. Simple answer.
Cool. Thank you for that. And we still have time, and we still have questions. So prepare yourself.
That's fine.
And another one is, what do you foresee for the indie market if cloud gaming becomes the norm, with companies curating the content a lot more strongly than current non-cloud platforms do?
I mean, I don't think that curation is bad, right? Because curated content for me as an end user means quality, of course. And if I don't like that platform and the way it curates and the title it promotes, then I'm free to choose the other platform or probably give up on, let's say, the model altogether, right? So curation isn't I think it's a very good thing. I mean, in case you don't like it, you go to the next one. Let's say you don't like the suggestions you receive from Netflix, you buy an Amazon Prime subscription or Hulu, or who knows. It's that simple. You look for other options, and for indies having options, that's a good thing. Yeah, that's how I see it.
And another one is, if you a curiosity, have you seen the Unreal 5 demo? And what do you think? It will be a game changer in the gaming industry?
Yeah, it will be, but uh, this is the short answer. The long answer is that I've seen so many realistic, I mean, what the industry could do. I mean, if you look at the realistic game of 1998, right now, you would say, oh, that's very bad. I mean, it would look like you just started drawing and you made that art, right? In terms of realism, it's very hard to keep up with the technology because, yeah, it will do for 1-2 years. And then the next big thing is going to come and create, oh, this is the new model of realism. Oh, this is the new model of realism. I think that's a clever reason why World of Warcraft have chosen, fantasy graphics. It's the same if you look at it. I mean, it still can do better in terms of quality, but it's fantasy graphics. Hand painted water looks like hand painted water. That's it. I don't say that what the guys at Unreal did. It's very impressive to come up with real time tons of vertices. You don't care about how many triangles you have on the screen, and then the particle AI thing, it was really impressive, but I still think that it's limited by your computer. Put that simulation on a cloud and just worry about your bandwidth. And I think that's how the magic happens.
And now that you talked about limitations, we actually have a comment on Facebook, and we are curious to see your thoughts on that. Someone was saying that, okay, there are some countries with main problem having internet connection that is really poor. So the person was saying, by solving that, I'm sure cloud gaming will be a great success. So what do you think about that?
I really think so, and look at the world right now. So there were countries with poor internet infrastructure, and they are suffering right now. They cannot work from home, and if you're in one of these situations, I'm very sorry for you. But for those, and they will develop. This, I think, is gonna become the model of at least the next 2 to 3 years. Authorities, governments will invest in their infrastructure, trying to make this social distancing thing possible, and for them options will, they will have options, and I was waiting if I hope I answered this question. I think that the traditional way of gaming will not go away. It's here to stay, and it will stay for a while. But I think there are plenty of opportunities for subscriptions and cloud-based gaming, and cloud and premium experiences as a whole.
Thanks for sharing your thoughts on that. And I think this will be the final one. There's someone who enrolled and actually had the question before joining. You tackled a bit some of of this area, but care to comment right now if can the industry reach back to a place where it will be dominated by games without secondary monetization?
Without secondary, well, it depends. There are games that do secondary monetization and do it well. The first thing that comes to my mind is, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, a game that you would purchase for $20 and then receive a bunch of, cosmetics that if you wanted to use them and equip them and whatnot, you would invest on top of those, $19 that you already paid. So that's probably a bit of the secondary monetization. My ethics is that as long as there is no straightforward correlation between money and power, the power that you have in the game, bought directly with money, I think that the games can benefit from having that secondary monetization layer. And if we're talking about, loot crates and all that craze that happened in the past years, I've actually done a bit of a research. We call them gacha crates and gacha boxes. And I actually researched the term. I was like, hey, when did this gacha term, got around? And it was, I believe, in the 2010s with the gachapon Japanese machines that you would put money and root for a drop. But I was wondering, hey, I've played games that had, chances of looting something before gacha was a thing, before free-to-play was a thing. It's an interesting mechanic that I compare with fishing, right? So you throw your line into the pond and just wait, and you don't know what fish you're gonna catch. It's it's the thrill of taking it out and actually seeing what you got. Maybe you got nothing. Maybe you got a small one, or maybe you got the biggest fish of your life. That's the feeling that it gets to the players. You never know what's going to happen. But those who abuse it, I'm against that. Don't abuse your players, man. Come on.
Yeah. And with that thought in mind, I guess we're running a bit out of time. Thank you guys for all the interaction and the questions. I still see something in the Q&A section, but I'm thinking that Solo, we can actually follow up with people. If you still have things that you'd like to comment or share with us, you just go on the Facebook page and leave us a comment there, and Solo will definitely come back and comment to you and to answer to other questions. If you might have other questions, for sure we will return on the Facebook page. There are some movements there, Solo, so we'll probably have some comments to catch up with on
That's
members'
nice.
Facebook page.
I hope there are no bad words.
Not as far as I've seen, no, so we're good.
Okay. Before you go, I would like to thank you all for being here and for staying with us, and to salute our friends from, I've seen Mexico, I've heard Indonesia, I've heard Argentina, so
Turkey.
It's Turkey. Wow, great.
Yes.
So, stay safe, everyone, and I hope you enjoyed your time with us.
Indeed, stay safe, everyone, and stay tuned to our next webinars, because this is only the third webinar from the series of Amber Academy's webinar. We'll catch up soon with everyone. So thank you for watching us. Have a wonderful day ahead or night, no matter the time zone is at your place. So stay safe. Thank you for joining.
Bye.
Bye.